Hey everyone, welcome back to Midnight Recaps. Tonight's recap is The First Omen, 2024. What if the people you trusted most had been hiding a terrifying secret your entire life? A young woman travels to Rome, hoping to dedicate her life to the church, only to uncover a horrifying conspiracy involving dark rituals, a mysterious child, and the birth of unimaginable evil. The deeper she digs, the more she realizes she's connected to it all in ways she never could have imagined. So grab your popcorn, turn down the lights, and let's step into the darkness. The story begins in 1971 with Father Brennan visiting a church that is still under construction. Inside the confessional, he meets Father Harris and shows him an old photograph of a baby standing beside three members of the church. Written on the back of the picture is a single name, Shanna. Father Harris immediately recognizes its significance. He explains that years earlier, a secret ritual was carried out by members of the church. During this ceremony, a devoted Catholic woman was forced to take part in a dark ritual that resulted in the birth of the child shown in the photograph. After revealing this disturbing truth, Harris panics and runs out of the church. Brennan follows him outside, but before he can catch up, a construction pole crashes through a stained glass window and strikes Father Harris, killing him instantly. The story then moves to Rome, where a young American novice named Margaret arrives to continue her religious training. She is welcomed by Cardinal Lawrence, the man who has guided her since childhood. Margaret grew up as an orphan under the church's care and struggled with frightening visions when she was younger. Lawrence always believed she had a place within the church and has invited her to complete her final training before becoming a nun. As they drive through the city, they pass groups of protesters. Lawrence explains that many young people have lost faith in traditional authority, including the church, and hopes that devoted women like Margaret can help restore that faith. Margaret is taken to an abbey led by Sister Silva. Besides serving as a convent, the abbey also cares for orphans and helps unmarried pregnant women deliver their babies. While settling in, Margaret meets a troubled teenage girl named Carlita. Because of her unusual behavior, the other children avoid her. But Margaret feels an immediate connection since Carlita reminds her of herself as a child. Margaret also meets her roommate, another novice named Luz. Unlike Margaret, Luz secretly sneaks out at night to enjoy parties and experience life beyond the convent. She believes that making the choice to become a nun means more if she first understands what she's giving up. As Margaret spends more time at the abbey, she becomes uncomfortable with the way Carlita is treated. Whenever the girl acts out, Sister Silva locks her alone inside a small room as punishment. Since Margaret experienced similar treatment growing up, she strongly disagrees with it. She also notices a mysterious nun who frequently appears around the abbey, making her feel increasingly uneasy. Eventually, Luz convinces Margaret to join her for a night out. Curious about a world she has never experienced, Margaret dresses up and follows Luz to a local nightclub. There, she meets a friendly young man named Paolo, who buys her a few drinks. As the evening continues, Margaret relaxes, dances with him, and eventually becomes so intoxicated that she blacks out. The following morning, she wakes up in her apartment with no memory of how the night ended. Luz assures her that she brought her home safely before anything serious happened. Later that day, Margaret returns to the abbey and helps during a childbirth. While watching the delivery, she suddenly believes she sees something impossible: a demonic hand emerging from the mother during the birth. Shocked and unable to understand what she has witnessed, Margaret rushes out of the room, convinced that something is terribly wrong. After calming herself, Margaret is approached by Father Brennan. He urgently asks for her help and shows her the same old photograph he has been investigating. He explains that the girl in the picture, Shanna, is living somewhere inside the abbey and believes she is in serious danger. Since Brennan has been banned from entering the abbey, he hopes Margaret can find the girl for him. He also tells her that the child in the photo would grow up surrounded by tragedy. Although Margaret refuses to get involved, Brennan gives her his address in case she changes her mind. The following day, Margaret notices the strange nun showing Carlita a photograph of a pregnant woman. Believing it is upsetting the girl, Margaret orders the nun to leave her alone. The nun quietly walks away, but moments later appears standing on an upper balcony, completely soaked in gasoline with a rope around her neck. She calmly says, "It's all for you," sets herself on fire, and jumps from the balcony, taking her own life. The disturbing incident convinces Margaret that Brennan may have been telling the truth. Believing Carlita could actually be Shanna, she visits Brennan at his home. Brennan explains that the church is divided into two groups. One group sincerely follows God's teachings, while the other is focused only on protecting the church's influence and authority. As fewer people continue practicing their faith, this second group has become desperate and is willing to commit terrible acts in order to regain its power. Brennan reveals that his opposition to these people led to his excommunication. He then tells Margaret about the secret ritual Father Harris described before his death. According to Brennan, the ceremony was performed to create a child fathered by Satan. The photograph Brennan found shows that child, and he believes Carlita may actually be her. Brennan goes even further, claiming the group intends to repeat the ritual. This time, their goal is to have Satan impregnate his own daughter so she can give birth to the Antichrist. They believe that bringing about the apocalypse will frighten humanity into returning to the church, restoring its former influence over the world. To prove Carlita's identity, Brennan asks Margaret to search the abbey for hidden records about her birth. If Carlita was born on the 6th day of the 6th month at 6 o'clock, and if she carries a hidden birthmark shaped like the number 666, it would confirm everything. Margaret struggles to accept such unbelievable claims. She first asks Father Gabriel for help finding Carlita's records, but he refuses to get involved. Later, Margaret speaks privately with Carlita and asks why she behaves so differently from the other children. Carlita admits that she constantly hears voices and sees frightening visions. Margaret tells her that she experienced similar things as a child and eventually accepted they were only hallucinations. Carlita quietly asks how Margaret can be certain they were never real. Just then, protests erupt outside the abbey, throwing the area into chaos. During the confusion, Margaret suddenly experiences another terrifying vision in which a demonic figure attacks her. To everyone else, however, she simply appears to be screaming and struggling with nothing around her. Sister Silva watches the entire incident with growing concern. Soon afterward, Silva and several other nuns confront Margaret. They tell her they believe her mental condition is becoming unstable and accuse her of encouraging Carlita's behavior. They forbid Margaret from seeing the girl again and inform her that she is no longer considered ready to take her vows as a nun. While driving home, Margaret spots Paolo walking down the street and pulls over to speak with him. Paolo looks frightened the moment he sees her. He apologizes repeatedly, saying he had no idea what was happening. Margaret begs him to explain himself. Before he can finish, he tells her to check for a birthmark. At that exact moment, a speeding car crashes into him, crushing him against a wall. Margaret desperately tries to pull him free, but his body is too badly injured, and he dies instantly. The horrifying event leaves her devastated, and that night she dreams of spiders crawling around her. The next day, everyone gathers for Luz's ceremony as she prepares to take her vows. While the abbey is nearly empty, Margaret quietly slips into Sister Silva's office and discovers a hidden passage leading to a secret archive. Inside, she finds filing cabinets filled with records labeled Shanna. As she searches through them, she discovers photographs of numerous deformed children who all died shortly after birth. Every one of them bears the same hidden 666 birthmark. Margaret quickly gathers the files and rushes to find Carlita so they can escape together. However, just as Luz's ceremony ends, the nuns discover them trying to leave. During the struggle, Carlita screams, and Margaret notices the 666 birthmark hidden on the roof of the girl's mouth, confirming Brennan's suspicions. Before she is captured, Margaret manages to hide the files. The nuns seize both her and Carlita, then lock Margaret inside a small room. Alone in the darkness, she is haunted by disturbing visions of the nun who set herself on fire. That night, Father Gabriel secretly frees Margaret from the room where she has been locked up. He reveals that he found the files she hid and admits that he has been working with Father Brennan all along. Since Carlita is heavily guarded, the two quietly leave the abbey and meet Brennan at a safe location. Together, they carefully examine the files. They soon discover that Shanna is not the name of one child at all. Instead, it is the code name for the church's secret project to create a child fathered by Satan. Each file documents a different attempt, and most of the children either died before birth or shortly afterward. One file is missing its photograph, the same picture Brennan has been carrying. Looking at it more closely, they notice the baby has a 666 birthmark hidden on her scalp. Margaret points out that this cannot be Carlita because Carlita's birthmark is located inside her mouth. They continue searching and eventually uncover another file that belongs to Carlita. The shocking truth is that there are actually two surviving children connected to the project. Margaret suddenly remembers Paolo's final words before his death. He wasn't warning her about someone else. He was telling her to check herself for a birthmark. Brennan and Gabriel examine her head and discover the same 666 mark hidden beneath her hair. The discovery unlocks Margaret's lost memories from the night she visited the nightclub. After she lost consciousness from drinking, Paolo brought her back to the abbey. There, members of the church carried her into a hidden chamber and used her in a secret ritual without her knowledge or consent, while the clergy watched and approved. Realizing Margaret is now carrying the child they have been planning for, Brennan and Gabriel quickly place her in a car and race toward a clinic, hoping to end the pregnancy before it is too late. Their escape is cut short when another vehicle slams into them. Father Gabriel is killed in the crash, while Brennan is left unconscious. Margaret tries to crawl away, but she is too weak to move. Within minutes, her pregnancy rapidly advances to full term, and she goes into labor. Members of the church arrive, capture her, and take her away before she loses consciousness. Margaret wakes up restrained on an operating table with Cardinal Lawrence standing beside her. He finally reveals that he has been part of the conspiracy from the beginning. Lawrence tells her that the birth of the Antichrist will restore the church's influence and bring countless people back to the faith. As priests and nuns gather around, a doctor performs surgery and removes a large sack from Margaret's body. When it is opened, everyone is surprised to find twins, a baby boy and a baby girl. The clergy celebrate only the boy, believing he is the long-awaited Antichrist, while the girl is almost completely ignored. After the operation, Margaret asks if she can hold her son. Thinking she has accepted her fate, Lawrence hands the baby to her. Instead, Margaret reveals she secretly kept hold of a scalpel during the surgery. She suddenly slashes Lawrence across the throat and grabs the infant, threatening to kill him before anyone can stop her. Sister Silva immediately attacks Margaret, and the two struggle across the room. During the fight, Margaret is stabbed from behind by Luz, who reveals she has been working with Lawrence and Silva all along. As Margaret falls to the floor, the clergy recover the baby boy. Before leaving, Sister Silva orders the entire room to be burned down to destroy all evidence. The building is set on fire, and everyone walks away, leaving Margaret and the baby girl trapped inside. Believing they have no chance of surviving, Margaret holds her daughter close. Moments later, Carlita appears and rescues both of them from the burning building. As the three escape, they hear a terrifying cry behind them. Looking back, they see the monstrous jackal-like creature responsible for the ritual trapped inside the flames as the fire consumes it. Afterward, members of the conspiracy secretly replace the newborn son of the Thorne family with Margaret's baby boy, setting the stage for the events of the original story. Several years later, Margaret, Carlita, and Margaret's daughter are living quietly in an isolated cabin, far away from the church. One day, Father Brennan arrives at the cabin. Margaret immediately points a gun at him, unwilling to trust anyone connected to the church. Brennan calmly explains that he has not come to harm them. Instead, he warns that the people behind the conspiracy have learned they survived and are already searching for them. Before leaving, Brennan shares one final piece of information. Margaret's son, the boy raised as Damien, is still alive, and his influence is continuing to grow. And that brings us to the end of tonight's recap. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It really helps the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.